Hello, I want to make a video talking about something that I've put a lot of hours thinking into, something that I'm really passionate about, and that's Path of Exile. Specifically Path of Exile 1 with the loot situation. I think a lot of players are missing some of what's going on right now. And I want to talk about that. So first, people are saying, oh, we need aspirational farms. We need that's the problem with the game, is that there's nothing to do. And they're not wrong, but like that's not quite what the problem is. It's part of the problem. So first, what is a video game? The difference between a video game and just like gambling is the layers of friction and RNG that you can put into the game, like in strategy. These are essentially how a game becomes, like how you go from basically just rolling dice over and over to like actually having a game. Is you have to have like actionable moments, you have to make decisions, you have to think and use your brain. And in the end game, things are solved. And they're not solved like POB solved. They're solved in a really frustrating way. And I'm going to get more into that. But first, I want to talk a little bit, just a tiny bit, about the history of Path of Exile. Path of Exile 1 is a game that has historically player speed, player power, and player autonomy have only ever gone up. And player friction has only ever gone down. And this is very important. It's a huge part of the puzzle. So basically, if you ask a Path of Exile 2 player, if you ask Palstron, if you ask Empyrean, if you ask Fubgun, and you say, hey, do you like the loot in Path of Exile 2? And they'll say, yeah, I love the loot in Path of Exile 2. And you ask them, okay, well, you like the loot and it's rewarding and you like that, but do you like cities? Do you like tablets? Do you like picking up white items and blue items? Maybe. And the response you're going to get is going to say, well, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of cities. I hope they can, you know, do something about that. Oh, I'm not, you know, tablets are okay. They're fine. I don't want tablets in PoE 1. You know, that can stay in that game. But what these things are fundamentally is they are layers of RNG and friction. They are like eating your vegetables, and they are a part of gameplay. So to me, the key problem in Path of Exile 1 is that all the layers of friction are not related to gameplay. So very specifically, what I mean by that, to drill down, is that you get to choose what scarabs you put on your map. You get to choose your all flames. You get to choose your Atlas passive tree. You basically know what's going to happen in that map when you run it. So the end game is like solved in the sense that we know what's good, we know what's bad, but the reason why we know that is not through strategy. I think that is another core piece of what's going wrong here. When it comes to figuring out a character, like when you're tuning into Captain Lance, the League hasn't come out yet, and he's talking about Luminary. Ooh, Luminary, what's going on here? And he's clicking on nodes on the tree. Ooh, what's this node do? What's that node do? Ooh, what's this item do? What's that item do? You can use calculators to figure out, oh, this is a good build. This is a good item. This is a good passive tree. I can share this with people and say, hey, look, this is what I discovered. And I can work with my community to have these discussions, and we can math out, oh, this is the best items you can equip. This is the best passive tree you can use. This is the best gems you can use. And we can use whatever information we have to try to figure these puzzles out. But when you watch Fubgoon's stream after 3.29.2 drops, what's going on? Fubgun is saying, chat, what's the strategy? What's the strategy? And what's he doing? He's throwing in random, oh, let's throw in this Scarab, let's throw in this All Flame, this tree looks good, this tree probably works. There's not a concrete strategy. There's not like a puzzle solving element to figuring out how to get the best loot. Because as players, we're obstructed from having very specific details. And I do think that that's a good thing. I'm not saying that we need a POB level understanding of the game where we have to know exactly what every single item does and exactly what every single Scarab does, exactly what every single mob drops, and we know all the quant multipliers and we can math it out perfectly. We don't need that. Okay? What we need is real strategy. And this is partially available. You can see things like, oh, rare monsters split their mods onto other rares through the All Flame of Propagation, and we can combine that with the Lunar or the Pantheon, not Lunaris, the Pantheon Touched, and we can put 1,000,000 mods on the Pantheons, and we can adjust the base loot types with the Scarab of Tradition, and now we're printing out 6 links everywhere, I guess. And maybe if it had a way to transform into like raw currency, then that would be exactly what Fubgun wants. Like maybe a map that's like a bunch of Delirium Orbs and a bunch of crazy Scarabs and a bunch of crazy rare mobs that have billions of EHP and do tons of damage, and you need like mirrors of gear worth to kill it. And maybe if they do drop like hundreds of divines, maybe that is what they want. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that that is exactly what would be best for the game or is exactly what they want. You see this reoccurring trend over and over throughout the history of the game where GGG will unlearn a lesson that GGG learned this lesson in Ultimatum League. I'm so glad they unlearned it in this league, and they learned this lesson in this league. I'm so glad they unlearned it in this future league. You see this reoccurring comment. And it's not because GGG is stupid. They're very smart. I think that they're incredibly smart. And I believe that the reason why they keep going over these things again and again is because they know that there has to be layers of friction. And right now, I believe the fundamental issue is that player autonomy is too high. Sorry for the cut. Player autonomy is too high. And what I mean by that is, like, if I take all the Abyss nodes and I run the Abyss and I put my map in, I know what's going to be in there. I can control all the variables through Scarabs, the Atlas tree. And when I'm running this map, when I'm in this map, if I see a ritual, let's say I didn't take any of the ritual nodes, it's a waste of time. If I see a Delirium Mirror, why would I even bother? What's the point? It's going to make my map harder. And it's going to make the whole map gray, and I can't really see anything. I'm going to get, what am I going to even get from that? Maybe 20 Delirium Splinters. Ooh, Delirium Splinters. And maybe a cluster, but like the rest is stuff that's hidden on my filter. Back in the day, before the calandrification of PoE, we used to run every single mechanic that spawned in the map. If a Blight spawned in your map, it's like, well, guess I'm doing Blight. If a Breach spawned in your map, well, guess I'm doing Breach. Time to do Breach. That's all there is to it. Because this legacy quantity multiplier that was on those made that stuff worth doing. And in Path of Exile 2, if you're farming Delirium, for example, and you see a Breach, you're excited. You're like, whoa, I can do a Delirium Breach. And this is a good opportunity, a good moment for me to get like some extra loot, some cool encounters, some cool stuff going on. The friction in Path of Exile 1 is entirely in the micromanagement of currencies, the micromanagement of your maps. You know, you have to get your delirium orbs, you have to get you have to buy your scarabs, you have to, don't forget your astrolabe, you got to put your astrolabe, and make sure to optimize the astrolabe, you disable the keystone. Let's take, the astrolabe has like a weird cut here and it's going to slice it in half, you're going to lose half your juice. Let's go run 2 to 3 bad layouts, and then we'll spec the keystone, and then we'll run the good layout, the one we actually wanted to do. This friction is all in the micromanagement aspect of mapping. You have to, gotta make sure you have your Maven. Don't forget your Maven chisels. You need those. You need to roll 2x more currency. You have to sit there and spam alt scour, so that way you get double more currency, so that way you can actually drop currency in the map. You know, remove more, this T16.5 more mods, just remove them. You don't need them. Just up the base quantity. If they need to be up by like a lot, then up it by a lot. But I think the monsters themselves at a baseline level, we need to bring that back. We need to get rid of the Atlas tree. We need less control over our maps. And I understand that some players are going to say, well, I don't want to see XYZ mechanics. Maybe we can because PoE 1 is a game that is a lot more bloated. It has a lot more stuff than PoE 2. It has a lot more history, you know, and we can't fit all that history in one map. You can't have a Breach Fortress and a Blight and Abyss and Harvest and June and research facility and all this stuff. You can't fit everything that's ever existed in Path of Exile 1 in a single map. The server would explode, okay? The server would explode. So we should have a little bit of control, but this control should be nudging us in the directions that we want to go, all right? It should not be the case that I can hard force the exact map that I want to run every single time. And it should also be the case that some of those frictive elements need to be moved back into the gameplay naturally. And part of that was that you didn't have full control over what spawned in every map. So that's why GGG was able to have really rewarding alvas and really rewarding all this other crap. Because you couldn't hard force every single thing every single time. You know, we used to have, I mean, just think about it like this. When mapping was new, when the Atlas was new, keeping up with your shaper maps, like sustaining T16s, this was a myth. No one did it. No one could do it. Maybe you could get lucky and you could get a bunch for a while, but people were not sustaining high tier maps, not when it was new. And eventually, sustaining high tier maps became the norm. And now we're at the point that they keep having to add more new high tier rare maps, because like T16, they're not even maps anymore. You get a T16, it's not a map, like it's not a cage map, it's not a fields map, okay, it's just any map. It's the equivalent of a Greater Rift Keystone. You can put it wherever you want. It's actually more powerful than a Rift Keystone. You can choose the layout. So that, to me, encapsulates what the actual problem is. Player autonomy, too high. We have too much control. If one strategy is overperforming, it kind of has to get nerfed, because you can force that strategy every single time. GGG have to nerf it, because everyone is going to flock to that strategy. And you could argue, well, you know, we've had metas in the past where we had a bunch of different strategies and they all just keep getting nerfed, and that's valid. But it feels like we're just playing whack-a-mole eternally. We're playing whack-a-mole with evolving alva, with whatever else is going on. In the old ways, if a league mechanic wasn't worth doing, it had to get buffed, because there was a chance that a blight might spawn in your map and there's nothing you could do about it. And If the blights are not worth doing, that's a problem. That's why they added blight ravaged maps as a drop in the first place. Well, partially because blight didn't have like pinnacle content when it came out, which was one of the problems that they had with that. But also, like, blight was just not really worth doing for a long time. So they added a reason to do, oh, you might get a blight ravaged map, which is a valuable reward. They added new oils. They have to keep the old mechanics relevant, because if they fail to keep them relevant, then they have to get removed. I think that for 3.30, what I really, really, really want more than anything else is I want a fresh vision for how we engage with friction and how we engage with strategy. I do not want the strategy to be, well, streamers ask their community of thousands of viewers, hey guys, you can put any scarabs in, you find anything crazy? And someone's like, whoa, I put in these scarabs and my loot's crazy. And the streamer puts in the scarabs and they're like, whoa, this loot's crazy. And everyone's trying it. The scarab price goes to the moon. And I would rather, if you're going to keep scarabs, remove like 90% of them and make it more of like a game of interaction and interesting like puzzle solving that's more straightforward with what it's doing and how it's like could be applicable to you. We have, as PoE players, we have like when we look at the skill tree, we know naturally, oh, this thing could be applicable to me and I'm interested in that. So please just focus on making an experience that is intrinsically rewarding. And that means I understand that we have to do our chores sometimes. We have to run our cities. We have to run our tablets. In PoE 2, that is. To have those epic moments, to have that freaking awesome abyss loot explosion, for that to exist, there has to be layers of friction and strategy and RNG. Thank you very much for listening.